What if it had been something serious? What if it had been a disaster or something else? And that's when the chills were like, oh my God, this could be a powerful new source of communication that could really transform the way we as people can move together and get things done quickly. And I just got really excited about it. And I think it was like, well, 2 days later when we got home to San Francisco, we actually formed Twitter Inc. Like, up to then it was a side project of Obvious Corp, of which we had multiple projects going, but we were like, that's it, we're a company and this is our thing, and everybody in Obvious Corp, do you want to work here? Yes, okay, boom, we're doing it. And it was a really big deal. And then after South by Southwest, we got like a name for ourselves. South by Southwest helped us. We got a lot of press, and we won some awards at South by Southwest, and it was just this, we got the South by Southwest bump. And after that, it seemed like there was an event that happened in the world where we weren't somehow part of the story. And it was just incredible. Like, everything was happening all around the world, and Twitter was just getting mentioned all the time, constantly, and that was helping it just grow more and more. What is this Twitter thing? I mean, there was even an early student-led revolt in Moldova that was organized over Twitter, and I came into work one day and my inbox was totally full, my email was totally full, my phone inbox, and it was like New York Times and Wall Street Journal, all these really important publications. They were all asking me the same question: Mr. Stone, what is your involvement in the Moldovan revolts? And I was really tempted to come up with a snarky answer and just say, well, I didn't like what's going on there, so I went over to the wall we have with the different countries and I pressed Moldova. And in reality, I had to say, let me get back to you on that, and I had to go to Wikipedia and look up where the hell Moldova was and what was going on. But it's just an illustration of the fact that there were so many things happening, and we were just becoming part of the story, and it was amazing, and it was incredibly fulfilling. And it made our work seem all the more meaningful, and it just became something that helped rooted the culture of Twitter as a culture of doing good and being proactive and making things happen in the world. And one of the big things, the big takeaways, because I worked at Google before that, and Google was a wonderful place to work, and Google was like, technology can solve any problem. And you believed it when you worked there because of the amazing things they were doing. But really the lesson I learned and I took away from Twitter was basically that no matter how sophisticated our machines get, such as this one, no matter how many servers we have, no matter how many crazy, awesome algorithms we design, change is not a triumph of technology, it's a triumph of humanity. And it's people, it's humanity that are going to bring about change in the world and make positive things happen in the world with some help from technology. And that's where we play it, and that's our role, and that's many of our roles here is to be that part of create the tools that help people do what they do best. And we've long believed that the open exchange of information can lead to a better world. And I've long believed that if you give tools to people that help them do good things, they will exhibit that behavior on a regular basis if they have the right tools. And so that's something that Twitter taught me, a lesson, and I think that should be a lesson for everyone to take to heart, whatever type of technology you're working on. And remember, it's all about people. So the next story I want to tell you does have to do with a lot of naked dudes running around the field. That's what this is, which is also part of my childhood. But the picture is totally legit. It's from Wikipedia. It's actually a bunch of Native Americans playing a game called lacrosse. So when I was a really little kid, my mom enrolled me in this program called Boy Rangers. It wasn't Boy Scouts or Cub Scouts. It was like this other weird thing that basically died off when I graduated it. And we were modeled after tribes of Native Americans, and I was in the Blackfoot tribe, and actually the other kids voted me chief of the Blackfoot tribe, and they gave me the name Owlbear because I was wise like an owl and strong like a bear. And we had to build our own headdress, and we actually had to pay wampum. We had to pay to be in this thing. Like, it was ridiculous. I had to do all these chores at home, and I would get like a quarter, and I had to pay it. And I didn't want to do it. It was a father-son thing, and I didn't have a father, so it was even more miserable for me. And you had to, the idea was you had to advance from papoose to warrior by learning how to like tie knots and all this stuff. And like, I really didn't want to do any of this stuff. So, but I did it anyways, and it took up all my weekends for all my youth, and all my friends, or at least my peers, my kids my age, were doing Little League baseball, and they were doing like Pee Wee football, and they were playing basketball and doing all this stuff. So when I got to high school, I thought, okay, sports seems like a good way to get involved socially in high school. And it seems like a good way to, you know, all my friends were like mathletes and drama nerds and artists and stuff. And I thought, you know, that's great, but I should diversify and I should get into sports. So, and I was pretty naturally athletic. So I started going to these tryouts, and that's when I was just completely dumbstruck, because I remember I went to basketball, and I was like, what are all these lines? Oh my God. Like, there's all these lines on the court. Am I supposed to know what these mean? And they were like, okay, Biz, you go. And I was like, no, I don't want to. I'm good. Because I didn't know what line I was supposed to cross and what was what. And they were like, okay, so you're not on the team. You're not doing anything. And then I went to football, and I was like, what's going on here? How many tries do you get? I don't know. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And so they were like, okay, you're not doing anything. We don't want you on here. And then baseball, forget about it. That was like some kind of religion with the rules. So like, that was freakish. And the kids were already totally into it, and their dads were like yelling, and they knew everything. And I was like, okay, this isn't going to work. So I did some research, and I found that my high school didn't support a certain sport, and that sport was lacrosse. So I went to the administration, and I said, if I can find a coach and enough boys, can I form a lacrosse team? My thinking was, if everyone was clueless, then we would all be as clueless as each other, and I wouldn't have to worry about it. And I guess I could have just learned the rules, but anyways, that didn't occur to me. And the administration was like, yeah, if you can do that, fine. And so I was able to do it. I got a coach. I got a bunch of athletic guys to join the team. And because I removed that layer of insecurity, I was like really good at it. And the other guys voted me captain, and I was like the high scorer of the team. And I was captain for the 4 years, and we were a good team. We won more than half of our games, and we were really good. And later in life, when I look back upon that, the lesson that I learned from it was that opportunities can be manufactured. Like, we always think about opportunities as, you know, you have to wait for a certain set of circumstances to all come together at the right time, and then you have to know to leap on those. But in fact, you can actually create those set of circumstances yourself, one by one, and then just take them and take the opportunity. And I realized that's what I did, and I realize now that that's actually really good business advice or startup advice or something like this. And so now I try to think about how can I manufacture my own opportunities. And so I think that's an aphorism that stuck with me. So after high school, I went to college. I got a scholarship for excellence in the arts. I was an artist, and I went to college, and I didn't like it because in high school I had formed the lacrosse team, I had produced some plays, and I got to college and I was like, okay, here's what we're going to do. And they were like, whoa, 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 no. you don't tell us here's what we're going to do, we tell you here's what we're going to do. And so it wasn't really working out with me there. But at the same time, I got a side job, and my side job was at Little Brown and Company, which is a publishing company, and they were based at the time on Beacon Hill in Boston, which is where I'm from, Boston. And my job was just schlepping these heavy boxes full of books down from the attic to the lobbies so that they go somewhere else. And this was at a time, like late 90s, middle 90s, when the art department, the department in the book publishing company where they design all the book jackets, the art department was just converting from like spray glue and stat machines and all these old school formats to Macs and desktop publishing. And I had always, since Macs came out, my friend Mark Ginsberg had an early one, and we were always using them. So I had been gradually learning everything about them as we grew up. So I was good at it, and I was good at Photoshop and everything like that. So one day when the whole art department went out to lunch, I snuck onto the art director's workstation, and I found a transmittal, sort of the call for the jacket, and I designed a book jacket. I printed it, I mounted it up, and I slipped it in with the other jackets to go off for approval in New York for sales and editorial approval, and then I went back over the boxes, and when the art director came back, he wanted to know, who designed this book jacket? And I said, me. And he said, the Box Kid. And I said, yeah. And then what happened was great. I realize now that it was a mutual benefit, because he really didn't have any clue about how to use the computer, but he said, how'd you like to work here as a book cover designer? And I also realized later that I pissed off all the people that were trying to work their way up to book cover designer. And I'm like 19, and I'm like, all right, I'm a hotshot young designer, and I get to design books. And I actually won some awards for my books, which got me even cockier. And I was just like probably a total jerk to all those people. But the point was, what I did was I basically apprenticed with him. And so on the first day of work, I go into his office. First day of work as an official designer. I go into his office, he calls me in, he doesn't say a word. I'm standing there, I go up to his desk. He reaches behind him without looking, he takes down a book of color swatches, puts it down. He flips open to like the mocha brown colors, he picks out like sort of a light mocha-y color. He tears it out, he puts it down on his desk, and with one finger he slides it across, and he says, that's how I take my coffee. And I was like, oh my God, I dropped out of college for this. This is gonna be, oh my God. And he was like, I'm kidding, I'm joking. And then actually later on I was thinking, that would have been a great test. Like that would have been a really good test if a designer could go to Dunkin' Donuts and like actually can you put a little more cream? And just a little, it would have been a really good like real world test of mashing a color, but he didn't make me do it. But I did apprentice with him for 2 or 3 years, and you know, my thinking was like, people graduate college, they can get a job like this. This is, you know, wonderful, and I'll be working with this older guy who's been designing book covers for like 20 years, and he'll teach me all these great things. So, and so he did, and I really owe a lot to him, because after learning graphic design, I went off on my own and I taught myself web design to expand my own operation, and that's what got me into starting Xanga and becoming like a web guy. And so I owe him a lot, and we're still very good friends. And but to get back to the lesson learned from working with him, and from working on you know, book jackets and so forth, what I realized while I was working there was this key thing that I hold like to my heart forever, which is creativity is a renewable resource. You never run out of creativity. If you do a book jacket and editorial doesn't like it, fine, you can still come up with another awesome book jacket. There's no end to the amount of creativity you can bring. It just doesn't end. Humans are blessed with it. So when you think about it this way, every challenge at work, whatever you're doing, at school, work, managerial, whatever, when you think about creativity as a renewable resource, suddenly every challenge becomes like fun. It becomes like a game. Like how can I come at this from another creative angle? How can I be more creative about this? And how can I think laterally about this? Like maybe I don't even need to do it. That's one of my favorite ways of thinking laterally. Like we need to get this done, and I say, how about we just don't do it? What would happen then? And people are like, oh, actually, yeah, we don't really need to do it at all. I'm like, all right, I'm going home. But seriously, creativity is a renewable resource, and you just got to remember that. Sometimes people get exhausted. You just go out and you look at the ocean, or you look through some design magazines, or you go online and look at some awesome design portfolios, and you'll be restored. It doesn't take much. So the next story I want to tell you is not my story, because I'm afraid of heights and I would never stand on a bridge like that, and I don't have wings. But this story is this is from a movie directed by Wim Wenders in the 1980s called Wings of Desire. They redid it in like the 90s with Nicolas Cage. Do not bother with that one. Go watch Wings of Desire, and I often recommend this movie to young entrepreneurs because in this movie there are these two angels, and their job, no one can see them, and their job is to sort of watch over Berlin, make sure everything's kind of going right. I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen it in a long time, but they can stand next to somebody and listen to their thoughts, and if they're thinking about committing suicide, they kind of like touch them on the shoulder, and then suddenly they're like, well, maybe things aren't so bad. And so they sort of keep reality in check, right? But one of these two angels falls in love with this circus trapeze artist. It's a bit of an art film, if you haven't guessed by now. And he really starts longing for what it would feel like to like hold a hot cup of coffee in his hands, or kiss a woman, or eat food, or do all these things that he can't do as an immortal angel being. And so he goes to his buddy angel and he says, listen, I'm thinking of renouncing my immortal status and just falling to earth as a regular man. And he's like, are you crazy? You'll become mortal and you'll eventually die. And he's like, I know, but I really want to live. I want to do these things. And these guys like, all right, you're crazy, but go ahead. So he does it. He falls to earth. He also falls to earth with some like gold angelic armor, which he pawns and gets a suit. I think they just wrote that in so he could get a suit so he wouldn't be naked. Anyways, that doesn't really matter. The point is, he gave up his immortality, and he eventually did meet up with this woman that he had fallen in love with, and they like met. Towards the end of the movie, they like lock eyes in a bar. It's as if they've known each other forever, and so it ends happily. But the lesson from that film is totally applicable to so many startups who are like hedging. Like, well, we get the startup, but we do a little consulting stuff on the side because that gets us to pay for it and stuff, and that way we don't have to go and raise money and all that jazz. And to them I say, watch this movie and realize that to succeed spectacularly, you need to be willing to fail spectacularly. Like, it's the equivalent. Like, if you want to really be successful, you need to be willing to be as equally unsuccessful and totally embarrassed and basically die. Like, I mean, I don't advocate dying, but you got to put it all on the line is essentially the lesson that this film well illustrates. And you'd be surprised how many people are like, right on, I do have to do that because I've been hedging. And so it's really a powerful message that I, even to this day, have to remind myself, like, you know what, I'm hedging. I gotta go for it. I gotta do the real deal. So the next story I want to tell you about has to do with empathy and the importance of it. When I was younger and when I was a young man, and I always thought, you were a good person if someone was collecting money to help fight poverty and you put $2 in their can, and that's what you were supposed to do, but you had no expectation of any kind of measured result, or like a letter 2 months later that says, Viz, thank you so much for the $2 last month. Poverty's over, like we did it, and so I always felt like it was just something you were supposed to do. It was kind of a black hole, and it was just what good people did. But several years ago, I started working with the folks at Product Red, and they blew my mind because they told me about this thing called the Lazarus effect. And what this is, a lot of you have probably heard about it, but what it is you give these 2 retroviral pills to a person who has HIV/AIDS. They're 40 cents. You give them to them every day for 30 to 90 days, and the transformation is unbelievable. A person goes from looking like they are at death's door to becoming a totally robust and healthy person who doesn't transmit the disease, can go back to work, can go back to being a mom, can go back to being a teacher, can go back to school, can do all these things. This picture, by the way, is the same kid after like 30 days. It's just absolutely amazing. And what happens, the thing that blew my mind is that as they work, as they help these different groups of people in these different areas, and people go back to work, and they go back to school, and they go back to being teachers and so forth, that entire geoeconomic region stabilizes. And then they move on to another one, and they do the same thing, and that geoeconomic region stabilizes. And so now we have what I was joking about before. We have measured results. We have actual real impact. And the takeaway for me from that was that there's a compound interest in altruism. There's a lot of flawed thinking about how you should do good in the world. A lot of people think that they should wait until they're comfortably rich or they have billions of dollars and then throw some money at a problem. But you don't have to be. You can get involved. The earlier you get involved, the more impact you'll have over time. That's the beauty of this compound interest. It's just like a compound interest bank account. Like, put a little bit in, over the years, it'll be this massive amount of money. And the same thing is true with helping out. And I always tell, especially people who are like job hunting, and job hunting is horrible, and you go and you get 8 months in a row, you're rejected every day. Go volunteer somewhere. You'll feel great about yourself. You'll be working with other people who have jobs, so you'll be networking, and they might want to hire you because they're seeing you in this environment where you're working hard. And it gives you, and it fills you with confidence, and it's so much better than this daily rejection. And not only that, you really are helping out. And I also think this idea of unlocking your empathy and thinking about altruism earlier rather than later has a big role to play in companies, especially startups, because startups have the opportunity to make this part of their culture. I mean, Twitter, for example, had a corporate social responsibility person years before we ever hired a salesperson. And a culture is going to emerge from your company, whether you like it or not. The phenomenon of the whole becoming something greater than the sum of its parts is just a natural phenomenon, and it happens. And you might get lucky in that your culture turns out to be good without any work, but because of human nature and fear and not knowing some other people and so forth, the chances of that happening are low. So if you pay attention to your culture early and weave causes and meaning into what you're doing, you'll have a strong, powerful culture, but you'll also notice that you're attracting really, really high quality talent, like engineers in Silicon Valley who could work anywhere they wanted because they're so talented. They can ask for as much money as they want, they can work anywhere they want, but they want to work somewhere where they know that they're going to be participating in something meaningful. Or customers. Customers want to know, if there's 2 choices of sugar water, and one of them is really helping out some cause. Like, I've long thought Coca-Cola, with their drive into emerging nations, they have this incredible they have all these roads and all these ways into emerging nations. I always thought their marketing plan should just be work with the World Food Program to put the red cups, which is what the World Food Program has, put those in the trucks and be known as the guys with the red trucks that give away the free food that make your kids succeed. That's how great of a marketing plan is that. And I think the future of marketing is philanthropy, because I think in the future people will, if they have a $5 million marketing budget, they'll spend $4 million in a cause, and then they'll spend $1 million making a whole big deal about how they helped out this cause. So you don't even have to be naturally empathetic or altruistic in order to realize that this is going to actually help your business. So weaving, doing good by doing well by doing good into your business, big or small, is a really key thing. And this is something that Brian and I are really working on and talking about and investigating and seeing how we can make this part of the future, not just because it's a good thing to do, but because it actually has to be true. In order for the world and human civilization to succeed, this must be true. So basically, to wind things up, in conclusion, I encourage everyone to create your own opportunities. I encourage everyone to be infinitely creative. I encourage you to embrace failure with all your hearts. I encourage you to ask questions of older folks, of folks who are in different fields. You know, if you have the chance to apprentice, do it. Ask questions. With Steve Snyder, I asked him, when did you know it was the right time to propose to your wife? How much money did you ask for your first job? He's like, why are you asking me this? We're doing design. I'm like, because you're older and you know. So ask questions and really take time to walk in another person's shoes and develop this empathy and develop this strong regard for how other people are feeling. And I think if we all are thinking along those lines, I think we have the opportunity to totally transform the definition of capitalism as we know it today, to have these three elements. We can change the world, we can build a business and make money, and we can have fun doing it. And I think this is the new success metric for capitalism. And you can't just have two of these things, you have to have all three to be successful. And that's what I'm on sort of a mission to do. And just before we get into the talks, I wanted to quickly show you, my son can now do tummy time. He's 3.5 months old. Jacob Arthur Stone. I figured, why not? I have thousands of people. Why not show a picture of my baby? It's a beautiful baby, right? So thanks for all your time. And now we'll get into
I think we have
Q&A.
Time for how many questions?
Did I run over?
Look, just a touch.
Sorry.
That's okay. Can we just start questions on that mic over there? We'll try to move as quickly as possible if anybody has any questions.
I think we're out of time for questions.
We're out of time for questions. Well, if you could show, so how about this?
But we have one more thing we want to show.
We have one more thing we want to announce to people. Can we get the slide, sir?
Slide people, can we show them?
Slide people in the back. Give you that instant.
This is the thing that Brian and I are working together that we want to announce. So
there we go.
You go.
Okay, so we are going to be launching a video series where Biz will be interviewing different luminaries, CEOs, and people that are engaging around new models and how companies, large and small, will be in the process of giving back and how it impacts their DNA, how they operate as a business, how it engages their own volunteers, and also why they're doing this, and how today it's no longer a choice or them just writing a check, but that they have to be participating in this model in order to succeed. And Biz is going to be interviewing right now.
Brian's got some incredible, inaccessible, genius people lined up, and there's an email here. So, if as a special treat to folks at this session, we created this email address. So, if you want me to ask any of these guys a particular question, we'll try to work it in, and I'll try to say, so and so from Austin or wherever wanted to know this, and so it'll be in the series. And it'll be kind of fun. Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to these guys. They're geniuses.
So email impact@huffington.com and just put in the byline South by Southwest and ask the question for Biz to ask. and we'll actually ask that, and we'll give you credit for it too. So listen, thank you everybody for coming.
Thanks
Really
so much.
appreciate it. Thanks so much.